I remember seeing the trailer to Lobster, and I thought, oh, what a quirky, funny, lighthearted movie this is going to be. This is interesting. I want to see it. But, like, it touches on, being a couple and being alone, and in a weird sense, and not a weird sense, a weird plot point that if you're still alone, you turn into an animal, and what's that about? So it's very intriguing. So I saw the trailer, like, maybe a year or two ago, and I finally got around to watching it a couple of days ago. And I must say that when... the first part of the movie, it's like the trailer. It's quirky, it's funny. But what the trailer does not, and the trailer's misleading, what the trailer does not say, or does not state, or does not, like, the purpose of a trailer is usually to let you know what kind of movie it is you're about to see, so it piques your interest and you see it. The trailer in no way laid out the fact that a lot of this movie is very dark and depressing and highly dystopian, to where it turns into just disturbing and sad. And I don't mind any of that in a movie, but if I see a trailer, at least I'd like that to be presented in it before I see it. So that aside, watching the movie, and even though I don't mind dark, depressing, disturbing movies, this was just something about this movie. It rubbed me the wrong way, and it was definitely unique, and that was the good part of the way it was acted, the way they interacted with each other. You can tell just the disconnect from people, and there's probably a statement on people with their technology and becoming more disconnected. I don't even know whether or not that's true. I mean, my personal experiences, I think people still are. They want to achieve connection and use technology in the quote-unquote right way to achieve that connection. So maybe it was making a statement about that. Just the way they fought each other and moved. It was definitely unique. Probably one of the most unique I've seen in a movie. But I think the overall message of this was maybe a little too bleak and a little too dark for my taste, because it just kept going and going down this path where it was like, wow, that was unexpected. And again, fine, if you want to throw me for a loop, okay, I'm okay with that. It's just the loops that it threw me for was like, oh, no. And, oh, geez. To where, at the end, it's like the guy was... So Rachel Weisz was blinded. Like, what the fuck? Where the fuck did that come from? And then, like, before that, people had their lips cut off because they couldn't kiss anybody, and people were getting killed left and right and buried to have dogs eat their faces. And before that, you had a dog who was... Colin Farrell's brother. I never remember any of the characters' names. Colin Farrell's brother the dog was kicked to death by a psychopath in the resort, and there was all sorts of treachery going on. And John C. Reilly, who I'm usually used to being funny, kind of wasn't. And people hurting themselves and mutilating themselves to find the right match. Again, I understand all the messages in this, to not to be alone because they don't want to be an animal or they don't want to die, and the extreme lengths that people go through because they don't want to be alone and they don't want to die. I get it. I actually like the message of the movie. It was just the execution to where it was just like, holy shit, this is dark. Not even a good dark, just like, ugh, this is a bad dark. And to where at the very end, Colin Farrell is debating whether, and it's one of these endings where I'm not a fan of the ambiguous endings. You don't know if he did it or not, because you have to match up with your mate. But at the same time, if they're not like legally married, they would probably still get caught or punished in the city. So so I guess, the lengths that people go through and how Rachel Weisz was blinded and they're surviving on rabbits in the woods because they're considered loners, and people who are loners are not good. So, and going through great lengths and coupling with someone you don't necessarily want to couple with for a multitude of reasons. So again, the messages were all good. It was just the execution that I guess left it. I guess if I had my wish, I would want to have the same message, but like a little more lighthearted. With some darkness thrown in, but this was just like, oh my God, you're watching it going, whoa, this is getting dark, and then it gets darker, and then it's, whoa, this is dark, and then it's even darker still. So, I would recommend this movie if you want to see something unique, but with the warning in that it's, it gets kind of dark. So the good parts about it was the uniqueness of it, the way it was acting, the way people spoke was fascinating. The way people interacted with each other was definitely unique. The wardrobe choices, how nice the resort was, but then the underlying theme of that resort was just a hellish place. And then escaping into the woods, how bleak the woods are, and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, this is the man's chance at freedom, but that place is in some respects more restrictive than what the resort was. Again, I see the point of all this. It's just, oh man. And especially expecting a different movie. I just wasn't in the mood for this kind of movie at the time that I saw it. And I watched it over a couple of days because I kept falling asleep. Not because the movie bored me, just because it was late and I just fell asleep because I was tired. So I am in the middle with this movie. See this movie at your own risk. And listen to this podcast at your own risk. And I thank you for listening to me. So if you want more of me, you can find me and more of this podcast. You can find me on Twitter at MMAM Podcast, on Facebook at MMAM Podcast. And please rate and share and review, and feel free to contact me. All right. I hope you if you don't want to be a loner, I hope you do your best not to be a loner, but make sure that you become not a loner for the right reasons. I got my fingers crossed. All right, bye.